Once the counterpart sign has appeared, it must be guarded for as long as necessary in the manner explained earlier. Even though there are at this stage no hindrances, the full concentration or apana still collapses again and again. This is because the factors of jhana are not as yet firmly and completely established. The meditator must keep his mind well balanced using the 10 skillful means for attaining jhana in order to arrive as rapidly as possible at full concentration. He can draw his mind together and reach full concentration by gradually gathering in the 5 jhana factors, making them well-defined and establishing them firmly. When the 5 jhana factors are firmly established, the meditator is said to have attained full concentration, anapanasati, or the first absorption, panhamajhana. In the state of absorption, the mind is endowed with 10 characteristics over and above the 5 jhana factors and the 5 mental faculties, all of which are completely manifest. Thus there are altogether 20 criteria for the attainment of jhana. The 10 characteristics are divided into 3 groups according as they are associated with the beginning, middle, or end of the jhana. A. The beginning phase of jhana, which is also known as the perfection of the practice, has 3 characteristics. 1. The mind is free of all the faults opposed to the attaining of the first absorption. 2. The mind thus free acquires the sign of tranquility meditation, samathanamitta, in this case the jhana factors. 3. The mind, having acquired the sign of tranquility meditation, becomes absorbed in it. It is on account of these 3 characteristics of the beginning phase that the first jhana is described as glorious in its beginning. B. The middle phase of jhana, which is known as the increase of equanimity, upekabruhana, has 3 characteristics. 1. Watching with equanimity, the mind, which is free from all faults detrimental to jhana. Cf. A1. 2. Watching with equanimity, the mind which is absorbed in the sign of tranquility meditation. Cf. A3. 3. Watching with equanimity, the mind endowed with unique excellence, ikata. Here, unique excellence refers to the state of complete absorption possessed of various qualities, each opposed to a particular hindrance. It is because of these 3 characteristics in its middle phase that the first jhana is described as glorious in its progress. It is because of these 3 characteristics in its middle phase that the first jhana is described as glorious in its progress. C. The final phase of jhana, known as rejoicing, sampahasan, has 4 characteristics. 1. Rejoicing because all the qualities of the first absorption, in particular the 5 jhana factors, have arisen completely. This is called integration of the jhana factors. 2. Rejoicing because all the mental faculties have been integrated and are working together to the same end. 3. Rejoicing at the mind's ability to make the sustained effort necessary to attain the jhana in question, in this case the first, and at its ability to realize the integration of the mental faculties. 4. Rejoicing because the mind takes such a delight in the experience of jhana that it willingly submerges itself in it. Because of these 4 kinds of rejoicing in its final stage, the first jhana is described as glorious in its consummation. These 3 groups taken together comprise the 10 characteristics of the beginning, middle, and final phases of jhana. They constitute the glory of jhana, something worthy of being achieved and revered. Highly gratifying to any discerning person interested in training and developing the mind. We shall now discuss the manner in which these 10, together with the 5 jhana factors and the 5 mental faculties, combine in the first jhana. The dividing of the 10 characteristics just discussed into 3 groups is purely a matter of convenience. In practice, they are all present at the same time. The one single state of jhana has different characteristics depending on the angle from which we view it and the mode classification we choose to adopt, which is once again just a matter of convenience. Now we discuss the 10 characteristics one by one. At the time of the counterpart sign, paikanamitta, this characteristic is not as yet perfected.
Only under such condition can awareness be transferred from the counterpart sign to the sign of tranquility meditation. 3. Third characteristic, the mind, having acquired the sign of tranquility meditation, is thoroughly absorbed in it. At this stage, the mind is devoid of any trace of the counterpart sign. It is submerged in awareness of the 5 jhana factors, not merely aware of them but thoroughly permeated by them. The purpose of regarding these 3 characteristics as belonging to the beginning phase of jhana is to show them up as manifestations.
And then further perceives another state, as follows. 6. The mind sees clearly its own unique excellence, this because of its ability to do 2 jobs at once. Obviously, then, the 3 characteristics of seeing clearly in the middle phase of jhana, 4, 5, and 6, are closely interrelated. The full meaning of this is brought out in the following analogy. Because a certain man is pure, others honor him and welcome him into their homes. The man can see at one and the same time all 3 things: his purity, his entering the home, and the honor he is accorded. The 3 things can be truly seen only in relation to himself, though they can also be looked at in isolation. In the same way, the mind focused on the 3 characteristics sees itself clearly and steadily through the power of seeing clearly, through the power of satisfaction, and through the power of the happy conviction that nothing in the world can shake its present firmness. This is why this state of mind is called anapanasati. The 3 characteristics of the middle phase of jhana are attributes of a mind that has already attained jhana. The remaining 4 characteristics are the benefits gained by the mind, the pleasant tastes, rasa, of jhana. They are the 4 kinds of rejoicing, namely, 7. Rejoicing because all the phenomena involved at the time of jhana are not merely present but are harmoniously integrated in the performance of their respective functions. The phenomena in question are the 5 jhana factors, the 5 mental faculties, and certain others. How the mental faculties are to be adjusted so that they are not in disharmony has been explained above, for instance, under Apanakasala 2. Here we merely point out that all 5 faculties fulfill their functions collectively and perfectly. No factor dominates or hampers the others, and of the 5 jhana factors, each is present at this stage at just the right intensity, so that all are firmly established.
In earlier stages, especially in the beginning steps of counting and connecting, applied thought, vitakka, and sustained thought, vicara, are present to some extent, but never in the right proportion, while rapture, pity, happiness, sukha, and one-pointedness, ekaggata, are completely absent. Later, in the steps of contact and fixing, rapture and happiness are present, but are still unsteady and weak. And one-pointedness is not present to such a degree as to justify calling it ekaggata. In the present situation, however, all these factors are developed in full and in just the right proportions, as if they had been precisely weighed and measured out by a discriminating man. They are therefore like 5 or 10 sticks, firmly fixed in the ground and joined together at the top so that they support one another mutually. Each one bears an equal share of the weight and has an equal opportunity to perform its particular function. So to have the 5 jhana factors present in the mind in the way that constitutes apana is not difficult. 8. Rejoicing because all the 5 mental faculties have been combined to do the same job, thereby enabling the mind to partake of the same pleasant taste of jhana. When the 5 faculties, faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and insight, combine and work together in order to partake of the same pleasant taste, success is achieved and mental rejoicing naturally ensues. 9. Rejoicing because the mind is able to bring together at will all the mental powers and apply them in the intended manner. Or, to put it figuratively, rejoicing because one is able to lead the whole crowd in whichever direction one wishes. The mind rejoices because it is in control of all the mental powers, not letting any one of them increase or decrease. And because it is able to integrate all the mental faculties to the same end, primarily to partake of the same pleasant taste. When in this condition, the mind rejoices automatically.
10. Rejoicing because the mind finds contentment in the pleasant taste of jhana and naturally prefers it to anything else. This is due to the powers of rapture and happiness, which attract the mind, and the powers of vitakka, vikara, and upekkha, which have made the mind firm. Absorption is, as it were, the mind's nirvana, a state in which the mind takes such a delight that it does not want to leave it. To summarize, rejoicing arises because of satisfaction in the taste of jhana. This fourfold rejoicing takes place automatically, and so is in no way an obstacle to jhana. Rejoicing goes together with the jhana factors, or, more precisely, it is itself a kind of jhana factor. It may be regarded as a form of rapture and happiness. We have isolated it here as rejoicing in order to examine separately it and its causes, both of which underlie the complexity of all the jhana factors. Our intention here is not to examine trifling details at great length, but rather to attempt an examination of the facts of jhana, and to clear away certain obstacles that may appear during this stage of the practice. These 10 characteristics are basic elements. They are the basis for examining every stage of the practice from this point on, including the remaining 3 material absorptions, the 4 formless absorptions, and the entire practice of insight meditation up to the noble paths and fruits. They are a device which can be used for examining every step of the entire practice of meditation. As each stage is attained by following the same pattern of practice, the one method of examination is applicable for all of them. Any differences being only differences in name, it is, then, well worth our while to pay special attention to these 10 characteristics. Unless the meditator is able to understand and know these characteristics by direct experience, he will have great difficulty following this course of practice, deliverance by way of mind, citovamudi,
and will have to resort to the method of deliverance by way of insight, pannavimudi, which is the direct and natural method. This is the significance of these 10 characteristics, calling the 10 glorious in their beginning, glorious in their progress, and glorious in their consummation, has the side effect of encouraging people to embark on the practice. It is, to use the modern term, an advertisement, a device to encourage people to take an interest in meditation in the first place, and then actually to practice it, having pointed out the relationships existing between each characteristic and the others of its same group. We now go on to examine the relationships of the 3 groups themselves to one another. These relationships are best understood by considering the state of the mind during jhana, especially as regards the object and the way the mind is fixed on it. Several of the terms used before will be used here in a somewhat different sense, and some of the mind's activities become difficult to understand and obscure, as it were, secret. Accordingly, we must consider once the meanings of these terms and the manner in which these mental activities take place. As is well known, the mind must have an object of one kind or another. This being so, the question is, what is the object of the mind during jhana? To simplify matters, we shall recognize 2 stages, that of entering jhana and that of being firmly established in jhana. The mind, when on the verge of entering jhana, is said to be mature, gatrabhusita. Its object is apana, the state of jhana that it is about to enter. The mind, when already established in jhana, cannot be said to have an object in the usual sense. However, the jhana factors, which are present clearly and in full measure, can be regarded as the mind's object at this time. This because the mind is aware of their presence.